Ladies and gentlemen,
Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another episode of Big Hero News. Kia ora, Chewy. How are you, love?
Kia ora, Pat. I'm good.
Phone's on silent. Phone's on silent. Phone's on silent. I just remembered. Phone's on silent. There we go. Hi.
Oh, I've got to check mine.
Yeah.
Is it Tuesday today? Is it Tuesday? It's Tuesday, isn't it?
It's Chewy's Day, yeah. It's Chewy's Day
It's
today.
Tuesday, isn't it?
Yeah. You know how I knew it was Chewy's Day?
Is it?
Because our old mate Bomber has got his podcast that's just finished or just wrapping up. And I had to be honest, we'll look at some of this tomorrow night. I don't think I've seen a funnier sight than Damien Grant trying to educate Max Harris and Craig Rennie as to how tax works. That was just chef's kiss. You're wrong. You're wrong. As you, we'll just open up the encyclopedia that isn't Craig Rennie.
I'm a libertarian and tax doesn't work.
Something like that. It was
I can't
pretty
make
funny.
my voice go that way, though. I can't sound like Kermit the Frog, not wanting to pay tax.
I think 40 years of cigarettes and stuff will do it to you, mate. Just start now. Start now. How is everybody? Got a. It's a big old show for you tonight. There's some news that's come out that I saw that I haven't said we're going to talk about, but if we get time, we will. And that's they've released, quote unquote, released what these new school lunch plans are going to be. I think what you'll find out from tomorrow is what is the nutritional value of them. Because one thing I thought from being sort of a primary school student at some stage was they look really small. And I wonder if they've had to count calories, but make smaller portions. Not necessarily a bad thing. And I know the critics are saying now, where's all the fruit and veggies? But it's only just released today. So I'm sure over the next few days, we'll have nutritionists around New Zealand piping up on it. We'll have a look at that. Also, Crown Observer has been called in for the Wellington City Council. There's a part of me, Chewy, because Tory Whanau seems very chill about the whole thing. I wonder if she's playing 4D chess. I wonder, because there are councillors who are saying these guys have come in too soon. I wonder if Tory's really aware of all of that. And she's just like, yep, whatever you guys want. And there's an inkling that it's going to turn to custard for the government. I don't know that, but that Occam's razor thing we do. What is the reason that she seems so chill and so relaxed about the whole thing? I mean, remember, she actually was someone who wanted to sell the shares, that she was on board for selling the shares and they didn't. So maybe it's to do with, because these councillors wouldn't let us sell the shares and we need something else. But she seems incredibly relaxed at the moment about the whole thing. And then, of course, the Andrew Bailey saga continues. Episode 7, a dumb
Because
hope.
we knew it would.
Yeah.
We knew it was going to just unfurl in its full glory. That's continuing.
Got a bunch of funnies for you as well tonight. The internet has delivered beautifully today on Donald Trump and McDonald's memes. We'll grab a few of them out for you as we go through the night. And also other more localised internet has delivered on Christopher Luxon, then opposition leader Christopher Luxon, telling then government, Labour Party, how they should deal with ministers that are giving him a bit of a hard time. So it's a bit of a different vibe he's got today with his ministers than what he expected of the last. It's a bit of fun. As we go through the evening, we'll space them all through for a bit of fun. But thanks so much for being with us tonight. If you were watching the working group, then this is sort of a CTU takeover tonight, Chewy, because Craig Rennie was on the working group, and tonight we have the president, the big dog from the CTU joining us, Richard Wagstaff. Richard, good evening to you, sir.
Hi there. Good evening. Good to see you.
Yeah, you guys are taking over the world. You're on every live podcast in the world at the moment, all at the same time. It's pretty cool. So there you go.
Good to see.
We would like to have a chat with you about this big event that you guys are running tomorrow, nationwide. Whangarei, Auckland, Hamilton, Mount Maunganui, New Plymouth, Palmerston North, Wellington, Nelson, Greymouth, Christchurch, Dunedin, and Invercargill, varying in times from starting at midday through to 3 p.m. or starting at 2 p.m. Those various places. In fact, I will cut that off in a minute and put it in the chat so people can go and look at it for themselves. Tell us about the huis that are happening around the country. What are they all about?
Yeah, thanks. And there's around, as you say, about a dozen of them. Most of them are happening in the middle of the day. There's a couple that go a bit later or a bit earlier. What it's about is the trade union movement saying we need to have a hui, a national hui, around what's happening to working people. You start to try to put together just how long this attack has been on working people. Most of it has really been in the last 12 months. A couple of years ago, we're making some serious progress on industry bargaining. We had FPAs, fair pay agreements, is getting up. We had some good pay equity settlements. We had some good collective bargaining outcomes. Unions are growing. Sure, we wanted more and faster, but we were going in the right direction. Since the election, it's been all wrong way traffic, down the wrong way, going in the wrong direction, and we've seen one thing after another, which has been a real assault on us. We think this is the worst government we've seen in decades, if not longer. It really, you got to go back to the 90s to experience anything like this. We think we need to talk about it. We need to show up and talk about it, and we're asking workers to show up in all those main centres, and we're going to be having a discussion about it.
Richard, we've been talking a little bit about which economy is this national-led government trying to bolster, and we struggle to think that the minimum wage worker will be happy with an economy set up for the top 1%. And probably if it was the other way around, the top 1% wouldn't be that happy for an economy set up for the minimum wage worker, which is the economy that we would be fighting for. But because I don't think you can have an economy set up where everybody on every level financially goes, hey, this is really good for us, it feels like it's being set up for the top 1%, not for business, but for big business. And we're wondering, like you've just said, this is the worst you've seen. Are we seeing these trends accurately? Is that what you're seeing in this government, that they're really just about everything they can do for big tobacco, petroleum, big business, and the little business and little man can go get stuffed?
Well, it looks that way, doesn't it? Every single decision they make seems to be, in the wrong direction. And every now and again, they say we've got an open mind, and then you see them deliver another bad decision. I'm trying to think of a good decision they've made that's been good for working people, particularly low-wage working people.
Yep.
They seem to delight in having high unemployment. They seem to delight in keeping wages low, and they seem to delight in big business doing better, or at least making fatter profits and paying less taxes. So I'm with you there. I mean, I would say that I say to our businesses, you know what? Businesses in Scandinavia make bigger profits than you, do better than you, they have a better society than you, and you live in a happier world. We don't need this misery on the poor for things to go well for you. In fact, quite the reverse, and you need to change your mindset, because if extreme inequality or growing inequality and deregulation worked, would be the richest country on earth, and it just hasn't worked, has it, for decades now.
I wonder if you've misheard when you say they've got an open mind. I wonder if it's actually Shane Jones looking for an open mine, because we know that's what he's about. He's about opening up the mind. I want an open mind, he's saying. Good for everyone. Chewy, this is your bag for lots of the times you want to get in and get passionate about. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, this is something that I think is incredibly important. I think a lot of the time Kiwis are quite content to go with the flow and all things shall pass and that sort of thing. But I think even in our wildest imaginations, when we got the election result last year, we didn't think it would be such an assault on so many things in such a short period of time that we can't go with the flow on this. Just like the people of Dunedin got together to stand for their hospital,
yep,
we need to stand for workers' protections, because this government doesn't care for us particularly. We're profit-making units at best, and they feel like they have the ability to just write us off. So this is one way that we can show that there are enough of us to worry them.
Totally.
I don't think there's been an activation like this for workers for a long time, as you said, since the 90s.
Absolutely. I mean, what we do have is a vote, and and we need to exercise it carefully. But we really need to build understanding and consciousness around what's really happening here. And we've always, as trade unions, of course, we understand that the future is not written. We need to seize it, and we need to act. And in fact, that's our responsibility as participants in a democratic society. We need to speak up. We need to be heard. And at the moment, I think the people who are running this country would prefer it if we kept to ourselves and stayed quiet. They certainly don't want to talk to us. Giving us a minister from the ACT Party, was a big sign of things to come, and she really has delivered on the ACT promise, which is she won't talk to us at all. She doesn't like unions, and she keeps working people sort of under her thumb. That's her plan, it would seem, and that's what she's doing. And it really is unacceptable to have a minister with her sort of political ideology being rained down upon the working people of New Zealand. It's just a little while ago, I was thinking we had COVID and we had all of this care and concern and valuing of essential workers, supermarket workers, bus drivers, public servants, keeping it together, nurses, health. And where's that all gone in such a short time? Suddenly they've ripped away fair pay agreements. They're holding the minimum wage lower than inflation. They're trying to turn employees into contractors. There's a very long list of attacks on these very working people that we all need and we all stand on in our everyday life. So, we stand on their work to make our lives function. That needs to not be forgotten.
I don't know if you remember, Richard, but there was a different government when they were caring for the essential workers than these guys. And when the leader of the National Party back then, one Mr. Simon Bridges, tried to push back on his own Facebook page, that was basically the post that led to him losing his leadership. So yeah, maybe that's a part of it. But something Chewy just said, and I'm interested in your experience in this, Richard, seeing you're kind of at the sharp end of this debate. When Dunedin protested for their hospital, everyone was there. The rich, the poor, the white, the brown, the disabled, the abled, everyone was there because it affected everyone. From your experience, are you hearing from everyone when it comes to workers, or those who are kind of not on the factory floor, but the owners and those who are in the medical professions? Are they not so concerned? So are we likely to see everyone at these protests or these hui's tomorrow, like we saw at the Dunedin hospital, or is it going to be primarily, do you think, workers there for workers' rights?
I don't think it'll be quite as wide as the Auckland Hospital protest, the magnificent, Dunedin Hospital protest, the magnificent Dunedin Hospital protest. I think that probably is a lightning rod to a wider slice of the community, and we are very clear this is a trade union rally, and we are trying to build that identity around trade union rights and workers' rights as fundamental. We know we've got a lot of allies and they'll be joining us, but we really are talking about workers and workers' rights. We also know, though, there is a lot of employers out there who don't really like the way things are going. It's not working for them either. And we know we have a lot of supporters amongst many employers who want to do a good job, but they tell us that it's very hard to hold up standards if there aren't any. And our competitors can undermine them, and that was the whole point about fair pay agreements. We know there's actually a lot of support from many employers to have decent standards, so that when they compete against their other businesses, they don't have to compete on a ever downward spiral of conditions. They can actually say, here are some standards, and let's compete on quality or innovation or whatever else. So I think we've got widespread support. I'm expecting a widespread support in terms of workers turning out. We know there's going to be a good turnout of anything from hospital workers and public servants through to McDonald's workers and Unite workers and all kinds of people in between, if you can call it that. And so we're expecting a wide range of industries there, and we're expecting a lot of people there and a lot of support. But I think it'll be a little different from the Dunedin Hospital rally, and that was an inspiration, I think, for all of us.
Yeah. We'll talk about the actual protests again and where they're happening next. But Sherry, is there anything you want to wrap up with? Anything you want to ask or mention through Richard?
No, sorry, I did have something and the thoughts just escaped me. I am lost for words, which is a rare occurrence.
Well, while you're having a think, have a think about that. Just have a little second, and I'll just do two of the super chats, which relate while you're having a think. Kiwi Bird says, time for a cheeky workers' revolution. And Bud says, we have too many sheep, not enough people to stand. Government don't want to hear us either. Totally out of touch. You got any response to those couple of messages there, Richard?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree completely, particularly with the out of touch. Before the election, we ran quite a strong election campaign where we said that the Prime Minister, the now Prime Minister, then the leader of the opposition, was out of touch and too much risk. And I think that while that seemed pretty strident at the time and upset a lot of, certainly upset the National Party, but upset a lot of right-wing commentators, I think most people would say we were probably, if anything, too kind.
Yeah, totally. Chewy.
I guess this is more a general thing. Obviously, in the past, unions used to be much, much stronger. I've made the point a couple of times on the show that the last time that there was a general strike in New Zealand was 1979. And it seems to me that there's only really a few industries where unions still hold some power. What in your mind is something that would improve that?
Obviously, higher union density, and that, what I mean by that is more people in unions. And to achieve that, obviously we're doing our very best within our current legal framework, but we really need to change the legal framework within which we operate. The most important thing is getting sector-wide bargaining, which fair pay agreements would have given us. Any country in the world that doesn't have sector-wide bargaining basically doesn't really get around 20% of the workforce. It's just too hard to organise. Scattered workplaces when there's no industry sector bargaining done. If they're enterprise by enterprise, you think of all of those businesses across New Zealand, you can't possibly resource it. It's too difficult. Whereas if you can settle an industry standard and people get to come and meet union members and paid union officials and paid time and all of those things, you can rebuild a union and you rebuild that kind of strength and power. Having said that, we still do have considerable amount of, I'd say our influence is bigger than 20% because we're spread across a lot of workplaces, and in many, many workplaces we might have 40, 50, 60% of the workforce, but we actually do settle the rate. We do negotiate what happens for everybody. Just a whole lot of people benefit who aren't in unions. So, we've been through some pretty tough times, as you'll all know. The contract sector, the 90s. We've had, obviously Keys government as well. Now we've got this one. We're not going anywhere. I'm really confident that we've learned. For me, compared to, that I'm old enough to have been around in the 90s. I felt like we were, absolutely smashed by, we're deliberately smashed hard by a government, and we really had to sort of pick ourselves up and push back. This time, I feel like there's much more urgency about we're not going to take this. We had a CTU conference 10 days after the election, and at that conference, we vowed to develop an alternative vision for this country and to stand up for our rights. We had Sally McManus over from the ACTU deliberately to G us up, and she did just that. And I feel like there's a fighting spirit. There's a feeling that this is our country, this is our history we're writing, and we're going to make sure we take it into our own hands.
Just to wrap up, I mean, Chewy's kind of mentioned this already once, but it's also the speed. Like, what are this government is getting up to, after 12 months is maybe in the 90s what we saw in the second or third term under Jim Bolger. It's just all happening so quickly. And to remind people, in 1 year in power, the coalition has already abolished fair pay agreements, brought back the 90-day trials, ordered mass public sector layoffs, cut back increases to the minimum wage, undermined Te Tiriti and Māori rights, scaled back work on pay equity claims, cut back funding on health services, education, public transport, scrapped essential infrastructure projects, made life harder for migrant workers, given huge tax breaks to landlords while cutting public services, caused a dramatic increase in unemployment while stopping income insurance. The coalition government is in the pockets of the rich and corporate interests and doesn't care about the working people. Through standing together and mobilising, we can demonstrate our power and ensure this is a one-term government that loses its legitimacy. And when our backs are against the wall, we fight back. And when we fight, we win. It's all on the page for the Hui's tomorrow. As I said, Whangarei, Auckland, Hamilton, Mount Maunganui, New Plymouth, Palmerston North, Wellington, Nelson, Greymouth, Christchurch, Dunedin, Invercargill. We'll put the link up again in the chats for people to pass on. And if you're watching now, because a lot of people watch this on demand, so they might not watch it till tomorrow afternoon. But if you're watching now, take this information, share it around, let other people know what's going on, and activate yourselves and get yourselves there. Richard, thanks for joining us. Is there anything you want to leave us off with specifically about the about the hui or anything else in general?
Yeah, just saying to everyone, turn up, tell your friends, turn up, stand strong, stand shoulder to shoulder with a trade union movement. We're on your side. We can make this happen. Thank you.
President of the CTU, that's
Thank you.
Richard Wagstaff. Richard, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
So there you go. Get yourself there. Lunch, midday lunch, yeah? Midday lunch at the Octagon. Something like that?
Yep, something like that.
Something like that.
You know, as I've mentioned, I'm lucky in my workplace. I have a boss that understands that this sort of stuff is quite important. And he understands the things that I find important. So I will certainly be there. A lot of places, a lot of workers don't have a boss that sees things that way. So again, we talk about using your privilege and that sort of thing. That's my one. I'm standing there for a worker that probably can't get away.
I'll be honest, I'm going to try my best to get there. At the moment, I have an appointment in midday that I haven't been able to shift. So I'm going to do what I can. If I can bring that a bit earlier and turn up at like 12:30, but I'm definitely going to do everything I can to get there tomorrow.
Pat, you missed an easy and obvious joke.
Oh.
Your boss is an asshole.
Yeah, he is. I hate him.
You work for yourself.
Yeah. I work for the people.
Smooth. Good recovery.
Citizen has a late fee. I was watching Legal Eagle. Campbell says Luxon is a hypocrite, plain and simple. Stephen, Free Palestine. That's kind of coming up each night now, like things about Mr. Seymour. Peter says, I think it'll take visits from the ghost of Christmas, past, present, and future, to make this government see sense with regarding to working New Zealanders. Unfortunately, though, if they met the ghost of Christmas future, who painted some dystopian nightmare to them, they might go, "Nah, that's about right. That's what we're aiming for." Hope you're right, Peter, but I am filled with fear a little bit.
You know, something, and this is a thing that I hear. Like, there's a couple of people who mentioned in the chat. Problem is, what if the government doesn't give a shit? Look, there is another aspect of this. Yes, we want the government to pay attention to it, but it's also showing up for other people who don't think there's a point.
Yeah.
I'm not going to the protest because I don't think anybody else will go. I'm not going because I don't think there's enough people that think the same way that I do. It's exactly the same thing we have with the little community that we've built around this show.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. People are noticing the things that I'm noticing. People are angry about the same things that I'm angry about. People are standing up for the things that I care about. So if people see that, there's a cascading effect from that as well. So that's another reason to go. You know, whether it's 5 people or 50,000 people that turn up tomorrow, that's why I'm going to be there.
Very good. Right. The internet has given us some little pieces of gold today. Let me share a few with you. And there's one that's slightly better. I think how about this one? Slightly better. Fries. That's pretty good.
I also love that whoever's done this has, like, they've changed the smiles. Everyone's smiling. Everybody's having a great time.
Oh, yeah. I didn't pick up on that. Look at you. Eh? Now, after knowing all about, what's his name? Arnold Palmer. He spoke for 10 minutes on stage talking about the size of Arnold Palmer's penis, which is a golfer, one of the greatest of all times. Someone thought they'd do this. Sorry, the milkshake machine is broken. Do you want to hear about Ronald McDonald's cock? I thought that's pretty good. That's pretty awesome. And one more, someone asked AI what it would actually look like to have Trump do a shift in McDonald's, and this is what AI spat out. I'll go back to the start. This is what AI spat. This is what it would actually look like for Donald Trump to work at McDonald's, according to AI. AI is pretty impressive these days. So it's so bad, it's good. I don't know quite what's going on here. It goes around and around and around. Yes, sometimes the internet can be a toxic place of horribleness, and sometimes it can deliver a little chef's kiss. Mwah. Just like that.
I I mean, the memes, the whole thing, the whole McDonald's photo op,
Yep.
is ridiculous because it is made some media organization show their entire ass by just regurgitating this obvious planned photo op verbatim. You know, here's Trump cosplaying as a working poor person, serving fast food to the real legitimate public, and it wasn't. It was actors. It was a closed McDonald's, and the whole reason he wanted to do it is because Kamala worked in a McDonald's, had a real person's job, and he wanted to go, no, that's not true. I'm the only candidate that's ever worked in a McDonald's. That's the whole reason for this.
Yeah.
And it's just so hilariously performative and fake that it's just the gift that keeps on giving.
I was watching Piers Morgan today. It was kind of playing in my ears while I was running the dog. And there was a progressive guy on it called Luke Beasley, who's a young fella who's doing sort of a David Packman type shtick on the internet. Don't mean that in a bad way, shtick, but that's his vibe. And this thing came up about Kamala Harris. And I know that we all know where Piers Morgan's bread is buttered. He tries to be like, I'm a centrist, but you never hear him putting a negative slant on what Trump does, right? It's the framing. And today they spent 6 minutes out of 48, 4 to 7 minutes, talking about Kamala Harris lying as a McDonald's worker, and there's been no evidence that she ever worked there, and yada 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 yada. And I just felt, I mean, this sounds really arrogant when you say it like this, but Luke missed a really easy in. It's like, I just wanted to go, for fuck's sake, shut the fuck up. Okay, Piers, if what you're saying is correct and Kamala Harris is lying, we've just spent 7 minutes of the show talking about a person padding their CV to seem more relatable, and no time talking about the other man who lied about rooting a porn star while his wife was pregnant with his child or giving birth to his child. You know what I mean? It's like the framing of it is, oh my God, she lied about, okay, let's say she did. I'll take her lies in a month of Sundays over the stuff he's lied about, yet the framing sets it up to then talk about, didn't Trump win this? Because it's all about kind of dogging her, it's getting it in. And it doesn't, it was frustrating.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? That this is the level that the US political debate has descended
Serving the
to.
dogs, we're serving the cats. Very good. I like that one too.
I can't find the other one that I was looking for, though, that had famous felons that had worked at McDonald's, and it's Trump and the Hamburglar. That was also a good one.
Well, remember, we do have a connection with McDonald's here in the show because we thought Mr. Luxon looked like Grimace for quite a long while, didn't we? I wonder if I can find that super quick.
I mean, people brought up the fact that Luxon did a photo op at McDonald's. At least he legitimately worked there when he was younger. Like it was performative, yes, but nowhere near as performative as what Trump's done. That's so Pat.
Yeah.
Isn't one of your most recent acquisitions some sort of sticker making machine?
Well, this artist who did this actually works for another media organization, and it's not. He hasn't created this brand new. It's different, but it's created from something else he created for another media organization. So I asked him about that because I thought actually a fantastic key ring, a little hairy key ring. But we will reapproach. And yes, the meeting that I'm trying to get moved tomorrow has to do with the printing equipment. That's what we're trying to figure out. So it's not really my timetable, but we'll see. So if I can't make it tomorrow, Chewy, it is for a very, very good reason. I'm looking through the door right there, and out behind the camera, there is a big, massive 50-kilo press for pressing prints onto T-shirts. And tomorrow, the digital printers coming in, the cutter, and all the other bits and pieces as well. So, yep, I'll go back to the young man who I won't mention his name here because that might link him back to his media company who drew that, and see if we can do something. But I tell you what, we've got the Nikki No Boats is very close happening. We've had the first couple of drafts through, and I might get to play with that tomorrow in the new printer setup.
This is the sort of top tier shit posting material that we could be pumping out to you, the masses, very, very shortly. Hey, Pat, before we move on to our next serious topic, can I, since I'm pulling stuff off my Blue Sky account at the moment, can I just put up my favorite image from today?
Sure.
I'm allowed?
Oh, well, no, I'm not giving you permission for you putting something defamatory up there. You can't go, well, Pat said I could, and it's like, gets us ripped off the internet or something. But yeah.
That's a really good point. I love this. This is from, that is from today's ODT.
See, we're not to try and get into that. There you go.
Big in that.
That's the Esplanade.
I love that. I love the fur seals. I love that they're coming back. And that's just outrageous baby fur seal behavior to try and get into probably Dunedin's best pizza restaurant.
You reckon?
He can't though, because they don't take bookings. So he has to wait for a slot to open up.
Very good. I like that photo. That's very cool. All right. Hey, well, let's get on to the so-called boring but serious news. So boring. This has come out today, and I apologize because most of my footage tonight that we're going to look to is TVNZ because stuff is not doing very much stuff at the moment on their 3 News thing. So it's been announced that the government is going to appoint a Crown observer, we'll try that again in English, observer, over the Wellington City Council. And yeah, like we said earlier, Chewy, Tory Whanau seems to be very chill about it. And I am wondering why. Let's have a look at the story.
The squabbling Wellington City Council's getting a babysitter, and the capital's embattled mayor is welcoming the appointment of a Crown observer, saying it could be a good thing. But Tory Whanau also admits the council needs to do better. Infighting's meant it has to rework its long-term plan, critical to the city's future. Abby Wakefield's been covering the story and has today's developments.
Wellington's ageing and leaking pipes, just one factor that led to Simeon Brown calling Tory Whanau with news of an intervention.
When I spoke to Mayor Tory Whanau just over an hour ago and said that the government will be putting in place a Crown observer.
The mayor says the call was cordial.
I welcome his intention to bring in an observer.
He's saying you need help running the council, basically.
Yes.
Wellingtonians mixed on the development.
I think it's actually probably a good idea.
They haven't gone far enough. We should have a commissioner in charge.
Why?
Because the city's out of control with the council.
This is what they're saying, right? It's a shambles, this guy on the street, they're out of control. But I guess what I'd like to say, Chewy, what I'm saying to you is that if that is the case, that kind of information hasn't been released yet. All we've heard about, as far as I've read, is the airport shares not going through. Shambles. We're going to take over. So we now know about infighting. So in other words, if the council is not functioning well enough because of infighting, i.e. there are people within the council stopping anything passing, yeah, they need some help. But it's like, I feel like I'd love to have Tory on. I've messaged her a couple of times, but obviously she's not doing media stuff at the moment. And say, can you give me the lineup of things that are wrong to be described as a shambles and to need to have a babysitter? You know, because for me, there must be a lot to get to this point. But as the public, we're only finding out about like 1 or 2 small things. You know what I mean?
I would love to know who this gentleman voted for. Like who was his pick for mayor and council. Because this sort of just... yeah, fuck it, bring in a commissioner, speaks to someone that is very comfortable with losing a democratic say in how his city's run. So he must be very confident on where the shoe's going to fall for him.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
I mean,
that's fair. Like if someone says, like my yardstick for the central government to swoop in and appoint a commissioner to overrule every democratically elected councillor, whether I agree with them or not, that's a big call. It didn't seem to be particularly popular in Tauranga. I'm just saying he's a little bit laissez-faire about the whole
Well,
thing.
yeah, and there are some councillors saying he's jumped too soon, old wee Simeon, but I just want the details. I mean, I guess we always say this, the truth is in the details. Give us all the details.
I think when it comes down to it, an observer is probably a good idea. And I think Tory Whanau is playing a very straight bet on this and going, yeah, cool. It's not you want to see what's going on, an observer is going to tell you what's going on. I think she's played that 100% correct.
Soft Starlight said he probably voted for Nikki No Boats. There you go. We'll keep going, shall we?
It's dysfunctional in my view.
I'm unsure about that. I am very suspicious of the current government and I have very little confidence in them.
We really don't want the government interfering in council affairs.
The minister says advice from officials highlighted concerns, including council having to relitigate its long-term plan, its funding of water infrastructure work and councillors themselves.
There's a lack of confidence in terms of the fact that they will be able to resolve these issues based on the behaviour of the council.
In coming to his decision, the Minister has fairly pointed out instances where councillors have walked out of meetings, refused to vote, and have also publicly criticised each other and council staff.
So that doesn't sound like it's really anything to do with the mayor. Like, because she's getting all the flack at the moment. But it sounds like there's some difficult, and maybe that's why she's so relaxed. Maybe she's like, oh, finally, a co-teacher to come and look after all these naughty kids. Maybe that's what it is.
I hope this intervention serves as a reminder to councillors that actually we all hold incredibly important roles on behalf of our city and we must do better.
Concern also raised how the council is funding water repairs from rates instead of borrowing. The advice claims that approach to paying for new pipes overcharges residents by more than $700 million over 10 years.
They could be funding and financing that differently and actually reducing the rate burden on ratepayers.
The Mayor disputes that figure.
Through this process also, I look forward to seeing what other solutions the Minister will have in helping us with our water infrastructure issues.
The government now set to closely observe as a broken council tries to fix broken pipes and its finances.
All right, Abby, take the...
So the bit at the end, just so you got clear, and actually there's a story on interest.co.nz as well about it, with a great picture right there. There you go. That says Wellington City should be taking on more debt to limit rate increases and needs a Crown Observer to advise on this process, Local Government Minister Simeon Brown says. So what he's saying is you need to borrow more. Now, I don't think any of us have got a problem with borrowing for infrastructure. It's a good use of debt. But remember, this government has also been just wanting to be really clear on what they're not borrowing for. So the concept of just kind of going, well, you need to borrow more, and because you're not borrowing more, we're going to get a Crown Observer in there. It's the same sort of thing. Coalition government plans to place a Crown Observer on the Wellington City Council as it rewrites its long-term plan following a vote to retain its stake in the city's airport. Left and right-wing councillors joined forces to halt the sale of its 34% share in Wellington Airport, shooting down Mayor Tory Whanau's plan, which would have reduced the city's insurance risk and diversified its investments. The sale could have raised $500 million, which would have been reinvested into a perpetual fund and reduced net debt levels. Now the council will have to revise its long-term plan and potentially cut investment in some infrastructure projects. Local Government Minister Simeon Brown said he was concerned about the council's ability to manage this process and use its financial resources effectively. The Department of Internal Affairs have advised Brown the council was not using its balance sheets appropriately when planning its water infrastructure and insurance risks. Now, we had a bit of a conversation earlier this week and we wondered about, or we had it passed on to us, about the input from the Willis family and do they have any say over the whole thing? So finance, this is the same story. Finance Minister Nicola Willis says it was in Whanau's best interest to cooperate. It does sound a bit mafia-like, doesn't it? It would be in your best interest.
You know what's good for you.
If you know what's good for you, to cooperate. And show ratepayers the council was doing everything it could to deliver good outcomes. She was not willing to say the council was not taking on enough debt Instead, she said many ratepayers didn't think it had been taking, quote, a prudent financial approach to funding long-term assets such as water infrastructure. Ultimately, it's for the council to work through those things. Yeah, but see, that's not true. Because if it was up to the council to work through those things, there wouldn't be an observer. They're specifically talking about the observer helping them through those next stages. So ultimately, it's for the council to work through those things is not accurate. But making sure it has effective financial management in place with balance sheet management and is receiving good advice is one of the matters the Crown Observer can look at. So the Crown Observer is coming in to look at who they're looking at. It's just, yeah. Look, I don't want to say, big government doing it, because we don't have all the facts. It's hard to say good or bad. I mean, an observer is one step away or more than one step away from a commissioner. So it is just someone to sit and see and advise as opposed to take over. So that might be a situation of it can't really hurt. But yeah, Tory Whanau seems incredibly comfortable. It appears that a lot of it's pointing towards councillors being difficult. And it seems that the government, or through Simeon Brown, and I think it's kind of hinted there at Nicola Willis, actually wants the council to borrow more money to levels that are questioned by Tory Whanau. That seems to be a bit of a summary of the whole thing, Chewy.
Absolutely. I think that this is just the most obvious case of this current government coming down on city and regional councils. I know the Otago Regional Council is copping some similar flack over their upcoming, I think it's to do with, again, with water rights and climate change and that sort of thing. The government's not happy with how that council is performing as well. So, I mean, this government is quite happy to just threaten to sweep away local democracy. They talk about localism a lot when it suits them, but certainly not in this case. I noticed a couple of comments on Facebook from Dunedin's former mayor, Aaron Hawkins. This from the minister's announcement that he's appointing a Crown Observer for Wellington City Council. In an earlier section, he decries them for not using financing tools for their capital program that they don't even have access to.
Right.
But it's the first two paragraphs here that the most extraordinary. Politicians acting in a political way is both a dangerously low bar for intervention and entirely consistent with the asinine conservative view that local government is somehow mysteriously apolitical. And I think that is something that we see right throughout local councils in New Zealand, that it's fine to stick your flag up and go, I'm Labour, I'm National, ACT, Green, whatever, in the national sphere. But somehow, for local politics, nobody has a bias or a political position, that they're just there for the city. And it is not true. I think it's a fig leaf right throughout this country, whether it's Wellington or here or fucking Gore. Everybody's got a bias in a position.
Yeah, interesting. Obviously, Wellington resident, it's in the ballot. Last LTP consultation of Wellington City, submitters wanted to use increased rates instead of debt to pay for water renewal and will likely be repeated. Because that's always the argument as well. Like, I think if you just follow with me in a general setting, if you bought your first house and you can buy your second house while keeping your first house, that's a smart financial, in other words, keeping your assets is a smart financial idea. If you can keep your assets, that's always particularly a better idea. Ben says Wellington City Council earned $20 million from airport shares in 2024. Selling for $270 million of a $16.5 billion 10-year budget is short-sighted. So keeping them might be the smarter way to go. And I know that's a bit of, you can't do big budgets like you do house budgets, but in general, if you can keep your assets, you always are better off in the long run versus today. But if you can't do that, then you look at selling your assets.
I think Wellington's in they're really stuck between two really important things. Their water infrastructure is clearly fucked. It's expensive and a lot of work needs to be done to get it right. And then the other punch is they are still dealing with the fallouts of the Kaikoura earthquake. And they know, and their insurers know, that they are probably staring down the barrel of another one in our lifetimes. So how do you deal with that? How do you plan with that? You know, and
Yes.
I certainly don't have the answer. And I don't think the council knows. Nobody's got a crystal ball. But I think in this case, the central government coming down and going, look, you guys are like, how many politicians has described the Wellington City Council in the past month as being shambolic or a fucking shambles? Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Are you helping solve the problem, or are you just piling on?
Yeah, are they selling the narrative so they can get their way in the end? You know, you tell enough people that it's terrible, then people think it's terrible, they want a solution. Camel picks up on something that we talked about a few nights ago. Let's get this straight. If a government is not doing its job properly, it needs an observer. Where are the 100 observers for the national government? Yes, very, very true. All right, we're gonna move on shortly, but before we do, just going back to that Trump conversation, Kiwi Bird says that video is the only acceptable use of AI, and Brian says 10 minutes of Colbert on Trump every day, humorous. Every day humorous. So obviously the late night hosts are going. I watched or I listened to it technically, Jon Stewart on the Daily Show today, and yeah, he was having a big old crack as well. You know, it's only 2 weeks away, dude. 2 weeks away to the American election. I got a message. I'm very, very jealous about this. I got a message from a friend of the show, Mr. Shane Tapo, friend of the show, Shane Tapo, telling me this: I'm going up to the States to watch the election. Do you want me to give you a call one night?
Yes.
How jealous am I, man?
Absolutely, yes.
So we'll have that. Actually, I should rephrase that. Thanks, patrons. We're paying for Shane Tapo to go to Washington to be our observer. He'll only do one cross, though, but thanks for your patronage. Hey, here's something that we're not talking about at all, but it's interesting. Just tonight, and I know that you're a big sports ball fan, but some people are out there. The Commonwealth Games are coming up, 2026 Commonwealth Games. Rugby sevens, hockey and cricket have been ditched for the 2026 Commonwealth Games. Sports including rugby sevens, hockey, cricket and diving will not be featured in the 2026 Commonwealth Games. Only 10 sports will participate in the scaled down games after the Australian state of Victoria backed out in 2023 and Glasgow came to the rescue. The 10 sports were, so this is all that's going to be in the Commonwealth Games: athletics, swimming, gymnastics, cycling, netball, weightlifting, boxing, judo, bowls, and 3-on-3 basketball. That's it.
Fucking bowls, though.
I love watching bowls at the Commonwealth Games. That's great fun to watch that.
Yeah.
It's just obviously it's an austerity world, and there's a whole bunch of sports that aren't making it. Anyway, you know what the latest sport is? It's taking pot shots at Andrew Bailey. It's a great sport, actually. I've got a gold medal in it at the moment. Let's have a look at the latest news on Andrew Bailey and what happened today. More information came out, more perspectives were out. I watched him do about a 6-minute stand-up when he left the debating chamber. And man, he must have said, I unreservedly apologise. I unreservedly apologised about 20 times. And the one thing I found from the stand-up, which was the most interesting question, is someone said to him, why did you go back? Why did you go back to the place and ask him a couple of times to come out with a beer? This One News story, obviously the reporter from One News was the person who asked that question, so it's in the story. So we'll just watch the story.
Labor continues to call for Andrew Bailey to be demoted after the Commerce Minister admitted insulting a worker on a recent winery visit. But the Prime Minister continues to have his back. Here's senior political reporter Benedict Collins.
A government minister behaving badly.
Did he call the worker a loser?
Yes.
Did he hold up the shape of an L on his forehead?
Like a child.
Hey now, you're an all-star. Is that the right song? L on your forehead? Sorry.
Again, yes.
Is he saying that he did not tell the worker to F off?
I do not believe I said that.
The Minister for Small Business admitting he...
You know how there's questions around was he drinking? And that kind of comes into it when you think about he then came back, oh, come on, come out with us. You know, that would make sense. But honestly, I'm not throwing any shade, the way he speaks always, he sounds a little drunk. Like he's just got a particular patter, which he doesn't quite slur his words, but he has that vibe. I can imagine standing across from him going, you've been drinking? Because it's the particular way he's speaking that does sound that way to me. Again, I'm not saying that for comedic purposes. the way he sounds, it could be mistaken, I reckon.
Belittled a worker at a small business, a Blenheim winery.
I was certainly not drunk, and I do not believe I swore. Regardless, I accept that I was wrong.
This morning, Andrew Bailey wasn't so keen on discussing his behaviour.
I've already given extensive interviews on it, and I've got no further comment.
Can you say whether you put your hand to your forehead and made a loser sign and told him to F off?
As I've said, I've given extensive interviews on it. I've got no further comment.
He did front up later to the press at Parliament.
Yeah.
I did wrong. I've caused offence with individual concern.
And he said that those two lines, I mean, I said 20 before, it's wrong. 10 times in the stand-up.
And I am devastated about it.
Why did you keep asking him to have a drink with you?
Look, it was done in a warm manner.
The opposition incredulous, the minister got off with a warning.
Why does a minister in his government calling somebody a loser for working late and telling him to, quote, take some wine and F off, not warrant any formal sanction from him as Prime Minister?
Well, as I've said publicly, I was disappointed in the minister's conduct. It didn't meet my standards. It didn't meet the standards of what we expect from ministers. But he has subsequently genuinely apologised, acknowledged the wrong, and assured me it won't happen again.
Labour MPs don't believe Andrew Bailey is fit for the...
Look at that face coming up. There's a sly smile coming up. We know what this conversation's about.
Quick thought there, Pat.
Yeah.
Should it mean anything that friend of the show there is walking up the left side of the corridor?
Is it the left though? Sometimes cameras reverse things. Oh, now we don't know. It's conspiracy theory. Maybe he was walking up the right side and they flipped it to make him walk up the left side.
Job.
Probably not the F off. I mean, we've all probably said that as a joke, but calling someone a loser and putting the L to their forehead, that's pretty rough.
Biggest belief.
I'm really disappointed with him. No worker deserves to be treated like that.
The minister's winery visit leaving quite the political hangover. Benedict Collins, One News.
So that's obviously a story that just keeps on giving. I've got some more things I want to add to it to do with Luxon's his desire to have the previous government hold their ministers accountable, which I'll get to in a sec. But first of all, Chew, I mean, it doesn't feel like there's any new news, but it still is not going away. And Luxon... Yep, sorry.
I think it's clear. Like he had to clarify in the House. Like it sounds ridiculous. Like the only thing he's disputing is whether he told this guy to fuck off. But he did call him a loser, and he did do this as a grown-ass man and not a high school mean girl. My jaw is on the floor. And then you combine that with the fact that this guy had a conflict of interest to the tune of $90,000+ worth of shares.
Yeah.
Why is he still there? Because the yardstick was set with Michael Woods. $16,000 worth of shares, you got to go. Conflict of interest, very clear. You've got to go.
Well, maybe we should get to the then leader of the opposition, Christopher Luxon, and what he was thinking. These are things, we'll give credit where credit's due. This is thanks to Rugby Intel. It's a very good channel if you want to follow it on, or channel, Twitter feed. Have a listen.
Well, look, I don't understand.
So actually, this is about Michael Wood. This is actually exactly what you're saying. This is about Michael Wood.
Well, look, I don't understand. He found out last Friday. He should have suspended him immediately on the moment, based off what the facts were. And as soon as you start to have relative standards, not absolute.
So can't have relative. Labor can't have relative standards. You have to have absolute standards. Now, what that means is you can't make any excuses. So in other words, it doesn't matter if he's apologised. That's a relative standard because you've changed your outcome based on what he did. That's relative. But when it was Labor, no, relative standards aren't allowed. It has to be absolute standards.
As soon as you start to have relative standards, not absolute standards, that's a real problem for New Zealand. Here we are with the fifth scandal.
And for those who are listening now, we've got Tim van der Volen, ministers, Costello brushes off all the stuff he's had to deal with so far, and it goes on and on and on. McKee's in there, more Nicole McKee.
It's a laundry list
going wrong with his management of his team, and I don't understand why he's not got it gripped up.
So I'm not going to fade that down because that'll get us boosted off the internet. So, yeah, I mean, there's another one I'm going to show you as well. I think it's actually from the same account. Yep. And this has been put together when he was leader of the opposition. But imagine that's him talking about Adam Bailey today.
I think this is a very simple decision. He needs to leave Parliament tonight and announce his departure from Parliament.
Yeah, I got that. But in terms of any other steps?
I think there's a lot of questions that you will no doubt start asking about what other issues have gone on.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but we have standards here.
Yeah.
This is a senior minister. I think it's very simple. He needs to resign from Parliament tonight. It's incredibly serious. It's not something light. It's inexcusable. The last 3 weeks have been incredibly frustrating.
It's funny how angry he got when it was Labour.
He's really strident.
Very, very angry when it was a Labour senior minister. But when it's his guy, he said sorry. I believe him. He said sorry.
Frustrating, because all we're dealing with is a government that's actually falling apart, focused on itself and internal issues and not focused on the New Zealand people. Every single week over the last 3 weeks we've been talking about personnel issues, and so we've got major internal issues here with this government that's focused on itself, not focused on the New Zealand people. So that's how I feel about it. Here we go again this week, and what we're seeing every week we're discussing these. Every week you ask me questions about what's going on with personnel. If you relatively accept
about Casey Costello, about Nicole McKee, about Andrew Bailey, every single week, Chewy, we're asking these questions.
This relative standard of actually, I'm sorry, but we'll just let this slide for a bit. You've actually got to stand up for some absolutes. But the integrity of Parliament, the integrity of Cabinet Ministers matters a lot. Well, he's not.
I mean, I look at that face, right, and how angry he's putting across. So he's lying in one of the two places. He's either lying then because he wants it to be embarrassing to Labour, or he's lying now, and that ministers don't have to have that integrity. One of the times he's lying, right? Because back then, when he was the opposition leader, he was talking about how important it is for integrity for senior ministers, and now he's saying, yeah, but he said sorry. This has got 30 seconds. We'll just let it play through to the end.
Well, he's not managing his cabinet well. I mean, this is a tired government. It's out of touch. It's out of ideas. And frankly, the New Zealand people deserve better. And the choice just gets starker for them. Do you want a government that's focused on itself? Sorry?
Has National had its own personnel issues?
And when they have, I've taken decisive action on those. That's what
I have taken decisive action. I just not in the future. Past tense is fine.
Believe in doing.
And mind you, Sam Uffindale, decisive action? I think not.
Thank you.
Not a word. So, yeah, we're not going to play the music. So there you go, Chewy. I think it's important, and like what we always try and do, and I've heard about it, is we will hold this government to the standard they held the last government to at the very least. And it sounds like, according to Mr. Luxon pre-election, the standard he wanted to hold Labour to was if a senior minister cocks up bad, they got to go. The integrity of the cabinet room is essential. It's not okay that we're talking about ministerial issues every single week. Hello, 2023, 2024 is calling in.
Look, I think it's really unfair of Christopher Luxon to criticise Christopher Luxon in this way. It's a really hard job being Prime Minister, with all his no portfolios, no roles. But maybe this is what Christopher Luxon meant by the most transparent government ever, because it's fucking transparent that Luxon doesn't give a shit when it's his own team. Yeah. He solved the problem that he wanted to solve. He's not the Prime Minister. He's on the road to getting a knighthood or something. I think it's really clear. Like somebody in the chat at the moment is accusing us of having a double standard.
Well, we're trying to hold the same standard. So what we're doing is, this is the standard that Luxon. No. It actually, our standard doesn't matter. Because we're biased, right? Our standard doesn't matter. All we're doing is showing you what Luxon's standard was and asking him to hold himself to his standard. Our standard means jack fuck all, right? Luxon's standard should be held and upkept by Luxon. So screw anyone talking about our standards. It doesn't matter. Luxon set the standard, and now Luxon's not abiding by the standard that he set. It's got nothing to do with us.
Yeah, absolutely. The double standard that we're being accused of is when Labour Minister Damien O'Connor said to a reporter, "Fuck off, I'm going to the toilet." And like anything, like we've been doing this for a while, Pat, 4 nights a week for like almost
7 years,
2 years, 2.5
20
years,
years, it feels like
400 years. If you're interested in what position we had on Damien O'Connor telling a reporter to go fuck himself, you can go and find it. It's on our YouTube channel. Just go and watch. Like, you don't have to accuse us of double standard. You can fucking find out. So yeah, I think the two things are unrelated, put it that way, because telling a reporter to get out of your way while you go to the toilet is different from telling a worker working late that he's a fucking loser. Like, it's like I'll take Bailey at his word that he didn't say fuck off. He seems to be confident enough to say, look, I don't recall saying that. I'm going to take him at his word. What he did say in the House, 100% confirmed, that he said to a worker working late, you're a loser for being here and doing this. Okay, the fuck off home with some wine, irrelevant. I'm willing to strike that from the record. It doesn't remove the other parts of it, and it doesn't remove the fact that this guy has a $90,000 plus conflict of interest that was enough to get a minister from the previous government removed. Rightfully so, in my opinion, because that's what we said on our show at the time, that it was a conflict of interest. Ministers shouldn't have them. He should fucking go. And now we're talking about the current government, which is absolutely riddled with conflict of interests, absolutely riddled with double standards, and it's being led, laughably, by a man with very poor leadership and absolute double standards. So if you're going to accuse me of a double standard, what are you saying to Luxon, who, as you just saw in that footage, has very clear views that Parliament has standards, and if you don't meet them, you got to go? Does Andrew Bailey meet those standards that Luxon said? Or is this fine? Aaron, I'm asking you now. Aaron, directly. I'm talking to you, Aaron.
And let me just say, I love it when this happens. People who think they've got a bit of a gotcha on us by calling us lefties, just remember, we are the podcast that literally showed you guys our political compasses. We literally showed it. This is a clip from 1 year ago. Officially, this was November the 3rd, 2022. We literally showed you our political compasses. There's that one. I think that was me, because you're to the right of me, aren't you? Yeah, that's probably you. And that's probably me. So people think that it's a gotcha, you know, when they're like, oh, you guys are on the left. Yeah. We talk about it all the time. That's our life. We don't hide it. In fact, what I would say to you, thanks, Mr. Luxon, is that we're the only honest contributors, especially on the internet, that'll overtly put out there where we sit. And now that you know that filter runs through our veins, you can now choose whether you judge our opinions valuable or not. Because I'll tell you what, we like to criticise the left. In fact, I like to criticise the left more than the right, because the left are my team and I want them to do better. I find it kind of hilarious when the right fucks up like this. This is more like storytelling about the right. But I'll be critical of the left because they need to get better to get back into power. So, not a gotcha. Sorry, dudes.
Yeah. So the Michael Woodhouse stuff, we were clear that it was fucking stupid that he got caught the first time, second time, the third time, dicked around, didn't get rid of his shares. I went as far as saying that no MP should have shares. That would solve this problem. But yeah, no, that's fine. No, it's fine. It's fine when Blue does it. Oh, apparently I'm being told that the real aspect of this is Damien O'Connor said it to a woman.
Oh,
I think a female political reporter that's in the House is tough enough to hear a sweary word every now and then.
Aren't those the people that normally say? And those are the people that normally say, stop being so PC, it's just words? Aren't those the normal group that comes from? Anyway, look, one more time, you know, we're over here with Nelson Mandela and Gandhi, so we're okay in that area. You know, we'll just stay with Nelson Mandela and Gandhi.
I'm going to take that between Mandela and Marx. I'll have that.
and we'll leave you to Reagan and Pinochet. Okay, you can stay off with there. You guys are having a crack.
Pinochet holding down the corner like the fucking demon he was.
All right, let's just do some of these super chats, and we've got time. It's just gone 10 o'clock. We'll do the school lunches story as well, eh? Kiwi says Shrek for Prime Minister, donkey for our deputy. Rachel says, meanwhile, the other coalition of convulsion are pushing through
convolution.
Convolution
Would be amazing. Just saying, but it's convolution.
All right, very good. Pushing through all the detrimental legislation while Luxon et al. Boffin their way through it all. Yeah. Brian says Parliament's media have a responsibility also. And here is one from, in the ballot again. Luxon and Wins use the same accountability standards when beneficiary, in bracket Labour Minister, in bracket, does something wrong, brick wall punishment is needed. When Wins worker, in brackets, National Minister, does wrong, a wet bus ticket is too much. And look, I'll just say it again. I'm not trying to convince anybody now. From day one, all I've done, and I think it's fair to say mostly what we've done, standard, they insisted the last government. I actually don't think anything could be fairer. And the last government got held to a standard of if a senior minister does this kind of thing, then there has to be serious repercussions. Now, when it's your minister, that doesn't happen. That's a problem. That's actually not us being biased. That's you accepting hypocrisy and you being fine with it. We're not. And I guess you'll have to wait until after the next election, should the left get back in, to see if we keep our consistency. The only way you're going to find out, you just have to stick around. Gold says it's close to payday. See any other Welly folk at Fork and Brewer tomorrow after the protest. Oh, that came out before, didn't it? Didn't we? Yeah, okay. So there's that one. Thank you, Gold, for the super chat. It's very generous. And just for clarity, for those interested in catching up after the protest tomorrow, I'll be at the Fork Brewer after the protest tomorrow. That's Wellington, eh? Am I right, Troy? I have a BHN hoodie and a Firefly forearm tattoo. There you go, BHN crew. You guys all get wrapped up in your BHN merch. And tomorrow's night's show, I might be able to tell you a bit more about the future of merch. Seeing all the merch producing products will literally be in the lounge through that part of the house. This house, man, sure. We're never going to be able to move. Studio's here now. There's going to be a printing room over there, man. We're stuck in here forever, I think. All right. Anything else? Or should we get into the story about school lunches?
Let's look at these lunches. These $3 lunches.
I'm intrigued with this. I went to boarding school, right? I went to boarding school, Sacred Heart College, out in East Tamaki and kind of eastern bays of Auckland. Well, not the bays, but above the bays, in the poor area above the bays. And there was always a rumour that they were about $1.50 a meal. Now, obviously, this was 312 years ago, so $1.50 went a lot further. And so $3 meals, this is what they look like. I don't want to get too much ahead of myself, but the thing I thought, but then again, I don't have primary school kids anymore, so I can't remember. But the one thing I thought were the portions were very small. Maybe that's just a guy looking at a snack, Chewy, but we'll see what you think about it.
Beef rissoles, Mexican and butter chicken curry are among the meals that'll be served up for free school lunches from next year. All eligible primary and secondary students will now get the new meals instead of just those in year 7 and above. The government's bulk buying approach will save $130 million next year, but as Kate Nichol-Williams reports, there are nutrition concerns.
These lunches will soon be filling the bellies of students. But first, it's time for a taste test of the curry.
It's one of the best meals that you're going to have. So I think you'd be amazed at what they've achieved here.
Hot and cold meals will be delivered to eligible schools for all students. The cost of each lunch has been reduced to $3, a result of the government using its bulk purchasing power.
Now, I mean, I'm not going to get caught up in the size of them too much. Someone's actually messaged us, Vicky's messaged us saying, I'm assuming Vicky saying they're 240 grams, which doesn't feel like nothing. But what, I mean, do you remember being at primary school? Parents of primary school kids now, is that okay lunch? I mean, what happens at morning tea, afternoon tea? Is that going to get kids through or not? Now, I'm not actually looking to poke holes in it for hole's sake. I'm genuinely asking, is that portion size going to be enough?
I'm going to borrow a phrase from our chat last night. I'm not going to let good be the enemy of perfect.
Okay.
I think any meal program that is available to all students is better than nothing.
But not as good as what they had last year.
Yeah. And I think for a couple of reasons. Yes, I would have questions, as you said, serving size, nutritional basis. Had they looked at that, or is it just cost per meal? As I said, this government's great at knowing the cost of everything, but not the value of anything. So one of the benefits of the previous school program is that they just gave schools the money and they sourced stuff locally. There's a spin-off benefit to the local economy and local producers and fresh produce and that sort of thing. This is more centralized meal production factories, frozen and sent out nationwide. They're trying to get the cost down through economy of scale. Again, not necessarily the worst fucking thing in the world, but is it the best thing that we can do? In the meantime, while we're working that out, let's put some food in some kids' bellies.
Yeah. I hear you. We'll keep going.
Argument is not fun. No, fuck.
Compass Group, owned by a British multinational company, will run the new program with big brands like Fonterra, Griffins and Hellers supplying food. Most of the current suppliers providing meals to schools will be cut. Those include small, locally owned businesses.
I can sympathise with people who have...
Remember that conversation we've been having about this government is a government for big business and not for small business or individuals? Is that just this box being ticked? Box being ticked, perhaps, on this one.
Lost business as a result of this change. But if you put it around the other way, should we spend twice as much taxpayer money and get the same result?
But health experts doubt it'll have the same nutritional results. Health Coalition Aotearoa are concerned about suppliers Compass Group and Libel, who have previously been subject to performance management over food quality issues. The Education Ministry says that...
Yeah, and also remember, just let me use an example of people who ever go to McDonald's. You know how the Big Mac looks in the advert compared to what you actually get in your they still come in boxes? We're just seeing very nicely laid out foods. You know, I saw the display of like yogurts and stuff. They're all looking pretty. This here, see all those look all lovely, laid out perfectly. I wonder also how much of this is the advert versus what it'll actually be. That's going to be telling as well.
This was robust. The government says the meals meet current nutrition standards, but one dietitian says there's a lack of fresh veggies.
Simply cutting the amount of food that they're having and supplying a more processed, less varied diet is a complete lost opportunity for our health system.
Schools with primary and older students are welcoming the change to one lunch model.
I think it's fantastic. I think there needs to be that.
Again, I thought this true. You know, he said earlier about that person on the street in Wellington where their vote was. We don't even get the name of this person to research them. Now, I'm not, again, casting aspersions, but it would be good to be able to find out, is there any kind of reason that some within the school system are very pro this and others are not? I don't know, but we don't even get to know who this person is. No name comes up at all.
Equity across the school.
Really good that we've got the foods, the lunches still, really good that it's a single model. But my concerns are around the remoteness of us and that the model is geared up for city students.
The new menu starts being dished up in the new year.
I don't know about you, Choy, but I don't think I've ever seen a man struggle so much to put a rissole in his mouth. Watch again.
Geared up for city students.
The new menu starts being dished up in the new year.
That was it's really good.
When the real food reviews by Tamariki will happen. Kate Nicol-Williams.
There you go. Now, I want to add one other thing to this conversation, and it's not to do with the school lunches, it's to do with something that's happening in America, but you go first. Thoughts, sir?
My thoughts aren't good. Like, I'll stick with the thing that any meal is better than no meal. But I think that New Zealand students deserve better than this. I think a decentralized model that had more fresh fruit and vegetables, that pumped money into local producers, the local manufacturers and that sort of thing over a British multinational company with questions over food quality in the past is really the thing that's going to inspire confidence. Like, this is just mass produced freezer food
for
kids It is hitting bare minimum standards. And the thing that they are most happy about, and I think the thing that would have been the top line item of what they wanted to achieve, was $3 a meal. It needs to be cheaper than what Labor did, because we've criticised them about it. It looks like a fucking corporate handout again.
We said this last week about an infrastructure issue. If your starting point, if your top line, if your most important thing is the dollar value, then you're always going to fall short. Now that can be up the top, but if the number one thing is budget, if that's it, versus use versus in this case health outcomes, whatever, then you're always going to come short. Let me throw this at you as well. I talked about this the other day. I'm not going to play anything, but I'm going to show you something. There's 3 YouTubers. KSI, whichever one of the calls
these
it is,
cunts.
Logan or whatever, and Mr. Beast. I quite like Mr. Beast. We watch him with my kids sometimes.
Oh no, Pat.
They've brought out this product called Lunchly. Now there's another product I think called Lunchify or something like that. And so these guys are trying to kind of quote unquote eat their lunch by putting out their own product. And this guy Logan, is this Logan Paul? Or Jake Paul, whichever one he is, he has this product called Prime Drink, and it's like the worst drink in the world. That's all full of sugar. It doesn't do jack all. Obviously, Feastables and Mr. Beast and KSI is just riding the wave. Now, there's a document that you can go have a look at this online yourself. Doctor reacts to the Lunchly controversy. This is the thing I'm trying to check in with what happens with these foods, because what the doctor found out was actually some of the levels within these packages of like sodium and like fats and all that, they weren't too bad. Right, they weren't too bad. But what they found out was the average calorie that you want to give to a child is that's year 1 to year 6 in New Zealand. So that's primary school, that's intermediate school. So primary school is between 550 and 600 calories. That's how much they should be having for lunch. Intermediate school, 600 to 700 calories. Now, what they found out was these meals are only 230 calories. So when you look at the ingredients on the back and the salt, the sodium's not too bad and the fats aren't too bad, all those kinds of things, that's because the portion size is only 1/3 what it should be for the calorie intake. So therefore, if you give them the right number of calories, you have to eat nearly 3 of these to get the calorie intake recommended by the medical fraternity as to what the kids should be having. So one of my questions straight away now, after listening to this, because it's really interesting, I'd never thought about that the food needs to be of a certain calorie limit or size for the kids to be able to function. It's fuel. I always talk to my kids about food being fuel for your body. So they need 500 calories of fuel to function properly. They're getting these meals, and I'm just talking about the YouTubers one, the Lunchlies, and on the back the sodium's not too bad and the fats aren't too bad and the carbs aren't too bad, but it's only 1/3 the fuel they need to actually get through the day. Now, bringing that back to what's going on here, this is what I want to now know about these lunch meals. Like, what is their calorie intake? Is that going to sustain a child? Because, butter chicken sounds great, but in a proper butter chicken, you have lots of creams and that kind of stuff. Those calories will be quite high for quite a small portion, or what? So that's what I'm still waiting on. And I get the sense that health experts haven't been able to have a crack at this yet because it was just released today. Once they do, dietitians and stuff will be able to break it down more. And then we'll find out, not put food in people's tummies, Chewy, but then we'll find out if they are also achieving as well as they have been with giving the kids the foods they need. Hereth ended my sermon.
Those Lunchly or whatever those guys are calling their product, they might have some other problems, by the way.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying.
For those of you that can't see, but look at the serving size, which is laughable. And then look at the fact that it's moldy.
Yeah, look, and I'm not sticking up for them at all. I mean, like Mr. Beast had this other product, Beast Burgers, and he cancelled it because it didn't really work. So put a product out. But the thing that I learned from it was, okay, how much? Let's just use salt. How much sodium is in there, and what's the portion size? Because what the doctor was saying, the portion size for a primary school kid should be about 500 calories. So if the portion size in those meals are only 200 calories, then they have to eat 2.5 of them, which would put the sodium way out of whack. So they're still to figure all that out. And then I'm holding my opinion altogether because the foods looked okay. And if the portion sizes work, and as you've been saying, Chewy, putting food in people's tummies. Yeah.
I think it's almost a hierarchy, right? Like any food program is better than no food program. The food program that we have should be available to all students, Like all schools, all students. That's another one of my yardsticks. And then I would like it to be as healthy and nutritious and locally produced as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and only then, shall we talk about the dollar value.
Yeah. And that,
but I
that
think
teacher
this government has come backwards.
The teacher in that story, who was obviously teaching rurally, I'm guessing, his point was it doesn't feel like this is really designed for the rural sector. And I wonder if that's because of the mass production, Chewy. That means you want to be close to where they're being produced, harder to get this dude here. And that's what he basically said, wasn't it? Oh, you've stolen my screen, that's why. This guy here, he's like, it's good to get it all on the same thing, but it seems like this is set up for the cities. And I'm assuming he's saying that because of location of getting these bulk made foods out to them.
I think there needs to be that equity across the school.
Really good that we've got the foods, the lunches still, really good that it's a single model. But my concerns are around the remoteness of us and that the model is geared up for city students.
So, there's other things still to figure out. But, Chewy, you're being very gracious. Food in children's tummy is important. But that doesn't mean also the whole good, excellent thing. Good would be the enemy of excellent, or excellent be the enemy of good. If you find out, for example, it's not good enough, then you need to do better. And we don't know that yet.
Again, this is a government going, there is no possible way that a New Zealand company can do this. There's no way that we can do it. We have to go to a UK-based multinational with a, let's say, not pristine record to do this. Like, we can't do it ourselves. We're just little New Zealand. Can't solve problems anymore. We just need to go overseas, solve our problems. Thank you very much. $3 a meal. Like, it's just so small-minded, short-sighted.
Some comments that have been coming in. Bud says, new lunches are a joke. $3 per child. Wow. Prisoners get fed better. Where's the logic? Campbell says, but the landlords, but the wealthy. Yeah, there you go. that was tutastic, that little explosion you just did then. They banned phones so kids couldn't photograph them. That's very good. Thank you, Sexy Ranger. Gold says, I would love to see Bellamy's take a month off and serve what the kids are getting regardless of what these fuckers order. Also, those look woke as fuck. Yeah, of course, there's that idea that
watching Seymour try and choke
woke.
that meal down.
You're like the freeze frame. Just out of interest, talking about choking it down, here's a freeze frame by chance. It's like, have you seen that episode of the Simpsons where Mr. Burns is running for mayor and he comes to the Simpsons house for dinner and Marge serves him the three-eyed fish from out of the river at the nuclear plant and he eats it, and his people behind the camera going, eat, and he eats it and he spits it out, and basically by the time the slow motion spit has hit the ground, he's lost the election. So that's sort of what you're seeing there, I think.
So just out of frame there's an ACT Party intern ready to pull the fire alarm to evacuate the press so David doesn't have to swallow.
Wow now keeps it real. South Auckland kids will stay hungry. Will still stay hungry. Yep. That's a very sad but probably very true comment. All right. Well, that's us for tonight, Chewy. Is there anything else you want to throw out there before we go?
Do get out tomorrow if you're able to that protest, that workers' protest. I think it's important. I think I've been very clear on the matter. And what I'd like to say to you is do it. Do it because I told you to.
I will do my absolute best to get there. I do apologise if I can't. I would like to be there. I thought I might drop you off a microphone, Chewy. You could take some imagery and stuff, pop into your work and see and drop you off some stuff. I've got some little DJI microphones that Bluetooth straight to your phone. They're nice. So yeah, hopefully I'll be there. The worst case scenario is I may turn up a bit late. I think that's about as bad as she gets me, which isn't too bad after all. But yes, and remember, I've put, and I'm sure Kiwi Skirt will do this again for us really, really quickly, put the link up in the chat about where to find the locations and what times they are on. It has definitely been in the chat. I put it in there, and I think I've seen Kiwi Skirt put it in there as well. So you can go through the chat if you can't find it to actually find out where your local is. But it seemed to be about 12, 15 locations around New Zealand, pretty much all the cities, all the bigger cities, bigger than sort of Greymouth and up, population-wise. All right, whānau.
Help us settle a debate, whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together. For better, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, knowing all the things that we need to be wary of. Like the rich have the hand out for rewards, while the many have to work out what they can't afford. And the rest of us ain't paying attention, or maybe have questions we're too worried to mention. Other media is still dwelling on trivial facts, vetting peas from the rice and the mice from the rats, and picking and choosing a warpath to run, and linking ourselves with the hill to die on. It's gotta come down to a welcoming vibe, with an A and a self and a higher in mind. All have a lean either this way or that, and will be analyzed by what you impact. With the evil in the world trying to mess with your head, and you're sitting on the couch, you're thinking chivalry's dead. Each night, 2 nights, they're gonna sing you to bed. It's Big Hairy News.
There's the link for you there, together.org.nz. You'll find it that way as well. One last minute super chat. My job will be at Aotea Square tomorrow, says well now. All right, Chewy, that's it from me. Anything else you want to add before we head off?
No, that's it for me.
All right. Take photos of yourself. Send them through to us tomorrow. If you're on Twitter, hashtag BHN. And we'll put some stuff up tomorrow night when we catch you then. So that's it for us. We'll see you tomorrow night, 9 p.m. for another edition of Big Hairy News. And before we get there, the dog is not in the studio tonight, so there will not be a closing shot of the dog. Because I know most of you are waiting just to see it. I'm sorry. She's hanging out with other folks tonight. I'm not.
Here we go. It's a capybara with a donut. That's what you get.
All right, team. We'll catch you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. Stay safe, everyone. Hooroo.
Cheers, fam.